This is a time for justice. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to cover more of these chemical explosions that are going on around the country. It's very, 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 very convenient that this is all happening at once. But what does it remind everyone of? Well, it should remind you of last year where we saw hundreds of food manufacturing plants get shut down. So what's occurring now? Well, we're getting air pollution, chemical air poison that has long-term effects on people. And again, I've said it a million times, if you don't see the initial effects of something other than animals and fish dying, if humans aren't dropping dead all over the streets, then there will be no outrage. Because when people get sick a year from now, just like with the magic potion, no one will blink because they will not correlate them together. So this is a way the government can easily get away with doing this. So just like the food manufacturing plants, we are seeing an unbelievable amount of chemical fires polluting the air, polluting the water. We've seen it in Ohio, obviously the most significant one. We saw one in Houston, not as significant. We saw one in Detroit. We've seen Oregon with the oil spill. We've seen South Carolina just had one. And now we've seen a few going on in Florida. Now, I mentioned a while ago, if you listened to this channel back then, about my fears of Florida being a honeypot. Because, again, I don't believe in left and right. I'm sure a majority of you don't, but of course there are some of you who do, and it's your right to do that. But obviously they lured people into Florida. Did they not? All we heard about is a freedom in Florida. Obviously, DeSantis would say everything on the microphone that would appeal to people like me and you. But for those of us that know better, we don't fall for, traps and psyops and psychological operations. But a lot of people did flee to Florida, and a lot of good people fled to Florida. And I've been worried that Florida is a honeypot. Now, this doesn't mean anything necessarily along those lines, but Florida is obviously a place that they drill with HAARP. They drill with hurricanes. And now we're seeing them not only drill it with droughts, but drill it with this in the air, the chemical explosions. We had 2 in the past week in Florida. We had a massive fire burning at a plastic container plant, okay, which will pollute the air and make people ill in the long term. Burning of plastics, not good. But the story that comes out of it is, oh, you know what? The fire's contained, it's out. Well, it's not about the fire being out. It's about what you're breathing in. And what do? They roll the government out, and the government goes, oh, everything's fine. Trust us. Trust us, everything's fine. That's what they said in Ohio. They wouldn't even send in FEMA, which is actually a good thing for the people there because they would probably lock them in, But the fact that they wouldn't even do that is pretty funny. And it's not funny for them, but I mean, it's funny as far as the functionality of this government. The government's pretty much waving a flag saying, we will not help people who are Republican. They're doing their bidding to create the Civil War because the town in Ohio is supposedly like 100% Republican, 100% white, or not 100%, but 90-something% white. So, again, you see how they're doing this, and they're just aggravating the people who are Republican, and then they don't address it, and the liberal people are just like, oh, look at the Republicans trying to politicize a train crash because they're too dumb to see that this is the tactics, or these are the tactics the government uses to go after its citizens because they don't have to take responsibility for it. But we saw that, and then, of course, there was another fire at Doral Renewable Energy Plant, which was burning for like 5 days. I think it's still burning now, which is a new renewable energy plant. So you're getting more toxic chemicals in the air. So all these surrounding towns and all of their, water supplies are getting it's just toxic, chemicals are floating around and falling into the water, and people are inhaling it. But take a look at what's going on in Florida.
Orlando starts now with breaking news.
And we are following breaking news at 7. Flames shooting into the sky in Osceola County this morning. We've got a 5-acre fire right behind Nursery Supplies Incorporated. This is Kissimmee, Fox 35 first on the air with this breaking news this morning and showing you some new video shared with Good Day Orlando by Fox 35 viewer Daniel Kobita. Workers at the nursery were evacuated.
If you're a resident that's living close to here, especially anyone with any breathing issues, I would stay inside and just stay out of the smoke plume.
And we want to give you another look at that fire. This is just a massive fire. This is Sky Fox over it earlier this morning. Here's the latest of what we know. Officials tell Fox 35 5 acres of plastic planters are burning at Nursery Supplies Incorporated. The nursery itself is not on fire. The call came in about 1 this morning. The nursery was evacuated because there were workers inside at the time.
And all those planters also wrapped with plastic, so a lot of plastic burning. The flames rose high into the air above the nursery as 2 acres covered with plastic pots burned.
There was nothing in the pots. They're plastic, and then they're plastic wrapped, and they're stacked about 10 foot tall on those pallets. And there are hundreds of those pallets, and that's the root of the issue.
They say the fire started around 1 a.m. 75 firefighters and 21 units battled the flames as thick black smoke rose into the air. People living near the nursery say they were concerned.
I got worried for a little bit, because it's so close by. But it looks like they have it under control by 7 o'clock, 7:30. So, it's a relief now that everything is okay.
The county says hazmat teams from Osceola and Orange counties are monitoring the situation, along with the state's Department of Environmental Protection. In a statement, Nursery Supply says the safety of our team members and our neighbors in the nearby community are our top priority and concern. We're thankful that the team in the plant at the time the fire started was quickly evacuated, and there have been no reported injuries. Public health officials say, fortunately, the plastic in these pots doesn't create toxic smoke or ash.
These pots are burning into soot, which is incomplete carbon. It's just carbon and carbon monoxide, a small amount that dissipates in the air, carbon dioxide and water. Nothing exotic, no cyanide like you can get in some fires, no exotic chemicals, which you can get in some fires.
Investigators are now working to figure out how the fire started. In Osceola County, Matt Trezza, Fox 35 News.
The latest now on the fire that still lingers at a waste facility in Doral. This is incredible new video from Miami-Dade Fire Rescue as they continue to work around the clock to extinguish those flames.
Yeah, quite a complicated firefight. Environmental officials have also been on the scene all day, and right now we're told all air quality tests are coming back clear, but not everyone is so sure about that. CBS 4's Chelsea Jones joins us live now from the scene with some concerns and the latest on the fire. Chelsea?
Yeah, so Elliot and Lauren, here where the media is staged as we come on the air tonight, it's hard to see the smoke still billowing, but I'm going to have my photographer pan for you guys. It is still smoking at this hour. I did speak to an environmentalist who says she is 100% sure that there's some sort of impact to people's health because she says this facility burns trash and the fumes are toxic. In the dark of Wednesday night, smoke can still be seen just beyond the palm trees. This was Sunday. The Doral trash facility went up in flames, and it is still burning 4 days later.
Folks in the area should remain indoors as much as possible and keep their windows closed. And for anyone driving through, we recommend that you please keep your windows rolled up to avoid any smoke.
In a press conference, officials say safety is still priority. On Monday, they assured the public that all tests have come back clear, and they say nothing in the air is toxic.
I think this is really just to keep everybody calm and, until a solution has been found.
Environmentalist Sophie Ringel has doubts about that.
If you burn plastic, like just a regular single-use plastic water bottle, the fumes are really, really bad for us.
Well, the EPA is in town working with the Miami-Dade Fire Department and Department of Environmental Resources Management. And the mayor says they're monitoring water and air quality. They've even come up with a water sampling plan for the runoff from this.
The storm drain system on site is self-contained to ensure that all runoff stays within the premises.
Officials started demo on part of the building to give firefighters more access to put out the fire once and for all. As for the smoke that remains,
is extremely concerning since we are inhaling and breathing all these fumes.
So at this point, we know the smoke is here. So what can you do? In addition to what Mayor Cava said, the EPA has recommendations for instances like this. They actually recommend that you wear a mask, but not the flimsy mask that, you may get everywhere, an N95 to protect yourself. They also recommend having food and medications for several days in the event you can shelter in place. And then lastly, they advise to have an evacuation plan in the event you need to evacuate from here in Doral. For now, I'm live in Doral. I'm Chelsea Jones, CBS 4 News Tonight.
So as of, me recording this, talking about the first one, 4 days after a fire started and swept through a Miami County renewable energy plant in Doral, officials said Thursday the blaze is continuing to burn. Speaking during a news conference, Miami-Dade Mayor The Miami-Dade mayor said the fire at the energy plant located at 6990 Northwest 97th Ave was still burning in 2 structures at the site, and there has been no substantial change in its status. After 4 days, you can't put the fire out? Right? I mean, 4 days? Okay. So they say, we realize this is a concern and inconvenience. So we are wanting to extinguish this fire as quickly as possible. Well, it doesn't seem like it. I haven't heard very often a fire going on for a week. Officials have said previously that 4 of 11 buildings at the site have been burned by the flames, with 2 of them still on fire. As of late Thursday, the fire broke out Sunday at the county-owned facility, prompting response by over 100 county firefighters. Now, they had people in certain spots lock in place, so officials urge residents to stay indoors and wear masks. Sounds very familiar, and we see people in hazmat suits, so wearing masks, hazmat suits, almost like it's phase 2, plan 2. So they've urged them to stay indoors, wear a mask if they have respiratory issues, but they have not said the smoke is toxic. Well, of course they're not going to say the smoke is toxic. Of course not. Would you think anything burning from a renewable energy plant would be anything other than toxic? Or let's flip over to the story about the plastics, right? Oh, don't worry, that's not toxic either. So more than 70 firefighters responded to a raging fire at a nursery in Kissimmee, Florida on Thursday morning, where nearly 5 acres of plastic planters caught fire, sending plumes of smoke into the air. 5 acres, pretty big amount. According to fire officials, a call came in around 2 a.m., very convenient time for the fire to start, so it could, burn without people being able to get there and put it out really fast, about the fire burning behind Nursery Supplies, Inc. About 2 acres of plastic containers were ablaze before spreading to 5 acres. And again, they interview the people who live around there. They're like, I'm just glad the fire's out. Are you? Well, you can't see what you're breathing in, right? Unless, like in Ohio, you could see the giant black cloud of smoke. And then when the cloud dissipates and it's not there anymore, people are like, oh, good, it's gone. It's not gone. There's still particles of it in the air. So they're in the chemtrails when we see it above. We don't see it raining on us. We just see the clouds above us. You don't see the particles going up your nose, landing on your head, right? It's the same thing. They're inhaling this. But again, when I mention all of these types of methods of warfare they use, if people can't see it with their own eyes, they will not believe it. They will deem it a conspiracy, and they will go back to being distracted by pointless, useless things like their phones. They will not think for 1 second that they are in harm's way. And then when they get, it's like asbestos, like I mentioned in a previous video. And then when they get cancer a year later, they will not link the two. They might have it in the back of their mind, but they're already trained not to even question the government or say anything about it, so they won't, which is part of the experiment that started a couple of years ago. You can't question the government's involvement in any of this stuff. You can't question if they're trying to do this or that to you. When all the data shows it, all they do is just come out and say disinformation, misinformation, disinformation, and still people aren't suspicious. They're more trusting in these absolute lowlifes. They don't want to even research the fact that they are all parts of secret societies, and their whole goal is like one world government. And again, this is biblical. This goes back to the Tower of Babel, right? That's why God divided the world and divided those people and scrambled the language, babbled the languages, because this is what they were trying to do. There's been trying to implement it ever since, and we're closer than ever now because, again, they've used, CIA tactics, Communist Manifesto tactics of dumbing down our society, so much so that they're distracted constantly by such pointless stuff like TikTok that they can't think for a second and can't see what's going on. But again, for those of us with eyes to see and ears to hear. So they go on to say the nursery fire, the nursery itself was not on fire, but it was evacuated because workers were inside. The smoke can be seen even at Disney. Across Disney, you can see the giant cloud of smoke, right? So it's a nice place to hit because, look, they don't care if you're a Republican or a liberal. They're going to hit everybody. About getting that number down from 8 billion to 500 million, right? And they got a lot of work to do. But, I mean, there's a lot of that's already been put in place, of course, and the time is ticking on a lot of those people, as we know, unfortunately for them. But in some cases, it's not unfortunate because a lot of those people were so boisterous, they wanted the government to implement a plan to put it into us because they're so stupid. So it's hard to feel sympathy for some of them, but obviously some other ones were duped, and you do feel bad for them, but their clock's ticking, and this is just another method now. People in Disney, they're walking around, oh, look at the cloud of smoke. Look, it's Minnie Mouse. It's Pluto. It's Uranus. Oh, right, that's not a Disney character. It should be, though. I guess that was Walt Disney. But anyway, They're walking around just distracted while that's hovering above their heads. I say it all the time when I'm even by myself, I go out somewhere. I look up, I see the chemtrails, and I'm just like, nobody's even noticing this. I look up, I see these giant 5G towers. Nobody's noticing it. Imagine 100 years ago if people saw just the type of, power, the big like energy grids and all that kind of stuff. Their heads would explode. They'd be like, what is that? They would probably think it was a monster when they saw these 5G towers. They would think it was probably a demon. But we go around through life oblivious while all this stuff's going on around us, and people are just, they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable because they've set everybody up and spoiled everybody with a comfortable life. And now they're going to take it away, and everyone's going to want it back, and they're going to conform, and they're going to comply to what's asked. And as long as they can have their phone back, they'll have free food and free water. It'll all be contaminated. The water will probably be 100% fluoride. Not saying it's not now. And then the food, of course, will be just complete, human flesh. Let's be real. What's in the soylent food they're producing? I mean, wink, wink, plant-based food. Right? Fetuses, the stuff that they like to eat. So anyway, I went on to a rant off of the topic, but you can clearly see that chemical warfare is going on. This is not a coincidence. This is very much like what we saw with the food manufacturing plants. This is stuff that's going to contaminate not just the air, but also the water. This is going to cause long-term health effects, and it's happening all over the country. This is not a typical, there's train derailment. This is a chemical attack, okay? Plastics being burned. Do fires happen? Yeah, they happen. Do this many happen at once that are involving chemicals, involving air pollution, or involving water pollution? No, they don't. Do they expect you to notice? No, they don't. But can they control that? No, they can't because of social media, which they want to get more control over. It's a 50-50 thing for them. They've used it for data, to data mine, to follow people, to watch what they say, et cetera, to feed their algorithms, to feed their, things like chat, GPT, all that crap. But at the same time, people in small towns can record this, film it, put it up on TV, or put up on Twitter, put up on YouTube, right? They won't put this stuff on CNN or MSNBC or controlled media because they don't want people to start getting suspicious. But they should be beyond suspicious at this point. Just like they should have been with the food manufacturing crisis. What happened at the same time as the bird flu happened. Holy crap. The same time that fertilizer shortages were occurring. The same time that food shortages were occurring because of Ukraine. And because, people were paid off to burn their crops during the 1-9er. I mean, how do you not see it? It couldn't be more obvious. Then they go and they meet and they talk about how we need to change our way of life and our life is going to be worse off and we're going to own nothing and be happy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But people are too dumb to think for themselves. So Florida, another place getting attacked with chemicals, it's going to continue to happen and they don't care because all it'll be to them is misinformation and a conspiracy. They will never address it. They don't have to address it. You could look at the people who own the railroads that are going off the tracks. You could look into the companies that are burning, the food manufacturers that were burning. Look, they do, like the quote is, right, for the greater good of the New World Order. So if they're told to burn down their plant, they don't care. We used to call it this thing called bagel lightning, because they're still getting paid off through insurance, so they don't really care. And if they're told to do it, they'll do it. Otherwise, they'll come up with some smear campaign, and they'll take their job away and put someone else in their position, and then that person will do it. Whatever they ask. That's part of how the secret societies work. When you're asked to do it, when you're asked to sacrifice, when you're asked to do this or that, they have to do it or they're gone, eliminated. Accidentally hang themselves, accidentally fall down the stairs, have themselves an accident, or they're just smeared through the media and replaced by some other talking puppet or some other CEO puppet who will do their bidding. So Florida's covered in smoke. Again, I worry about Florida being a honeypot. I really do. I have for quite a long period of time. It just seems too good to be true. It just seems too good to be true. They wheel everybody into this area where they're like, oh, look, it's about Christians. It's about morals in Florida. They're not doing this in the schools. They're protecting people. They're not making you wear a mask. They're not making you get mandates on these other things that we know about. And obviously it sounds great. But if that narrative is out there and the mainstream media is talking about it, then they want you to go there because they wouldn't even mention it or give millions and millions of hours of airtime to DeSantis. Okay? They're luring people into certain states because certain states are going to be hit with chemical warfare, with weather warfare, and who knows what else. They could use China and just implement something there and say, oh, China did it. You'll see. It's going to come. I'm telling you. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe, everybody. God bless you and your families.